Good day, dear students, and welcome to your presentation for Social Science 3 for 2022. I'm your tutor, R.N. Dishena, and my details are further displayed on the screen. Welcome to the Bachelor of Education, Senior Primary, Social Science 3 presentation. Please take note that this presentation covers the subject content in summary for the 2022 April, August, and November examination. This is by no means an examination scope. Therefore, as a student of social sciences, you are expected to thoroughly read your study guides and other relevant reading materials. In this subject, all questions will be compulsory. Let's start with the chapters in the book. We start with chapter 1, aspects of living in a global and local neighborhood. In this chapter, you are expected to know the difference between global and local neighborhood. And in summary, I define them as follows. A neighborhood is a geographically localized community within a large city. That is a neighborhood. You now need to search and find out what a global neighborhood is and what a local neighborhood is. And then you have to identify benefits and problems resulting from global neighborhoods. I have listed a couple of them here, such as a larger market. If you are a business person, you have the benefit of a larger market to sell your things because there are more people. Consumer benefit, as a consumer also you have a bigger, wider range to select from, so you will also benefit in a global neighborhood. It allows countries to do what they can do best. For instance, if your country is good at making boreholes, you will then be able to make the best boreholes and sell it to your neighboring country. So it is simple as that. But there are also problems as far as global neighborhood is concerned. The more closer we are to each other, the more problems there also will be. For instance, unemployment. In a global village, people will be able to look for a job everywhere throughout the continent or throughout the world, meaning you will definitely experience unemployment problems. Environmental problems. Too many people could settle at a specific environment and cause environmental problems. Financial problems, and poor countries will get poorer. Also, diseases can spread faster. For instance, the case of COVID-19. It was detected somewhere else, but how did we suffer here? It's because of globalization, or because we now live in a global village called the world. That, in short, was chapter 1. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 deals with the features of an early world civilization and later developments. Here you are expected to describe the features of an early world civilization. How was it then? What specific things were there? Most of those things might not be with us at the moment. So you are expected then to go back many years back to get a broader understanding. And then you are expected to identify features of the old, middle historical period and compare it to early historical aspects. Let's go back to early world civilization. Here you are expected to look at civilizations such as the civilization of the Egyptian civilization, the Khoisan civilization, the Aztec civilization, and the Inca civilization. When you are going to look at this civilization, you are specifically requested to look at the following aspect. The food. What type of food were people eating in these civilizations? Religion. What did they believe in these particular civilizations? Housing. In what type of houses were these people living? Social structure. What social structure was there? How were they arranging or making arrangements for their leaderships? And then you are expected to look at difference between primary and secondary sources that are used by historians, and you are also expected to identify such sources. Now, as a social science student, you will know that sources are a very important source of information in social sciences, and they are classified into primary and secondary sources. So you should be able to make a distinctive difference between what primary source is and what secondary source is. Then you are also expected to explain how a social science teacher will motivate learners to study history. In other words, you have to clearly understand the aims and purposes of studying history. I listed a couple of them here. Number one, it's to look beyond headlines. As a social science teacher, you are expected to install into your learners the ability to look beyond headlines, go beyond headlines. It also teaches learners how to think and process information. It develops the understanding about present and the future, and it helps you in making sense of other subjects. As a learner, by studying social sciences, you should be able to be making sense of other subjects, because social sciences covers a wide range of aspects that are also covered in other subjects. We move over to chapter 3. In chapter 3, it deals with different kinds of maps and weather forecast. I've realized that this is a very technical chapter in our study guide, and quite a number of students do struggle with this part. Now here you're expected, for instance, to differentiate between lines of latitude on a given map. Your lines of latitude are the lines that are on a normal map drawn from left to right or from right to left. Those horizontal lines, those are your lines of latitude. That include the very important line of latitude called the equator, the Tropic of Capricorn, and the Tropic of Cancer. You need to understand and to be able to locate these lines on a given map. You are also expected to explain the reference or the phrase grid reference. This is very particular to those, especially people that do travel, to locate precisely where you are. This is what is used. So, and you need to understand it as a social science teacher, because it's very big, or it's bold in geography, which you will be expected to teach. This you can find on page 147 in your study guide. You are also expected to locate places on a map using this grid reference. Before you will be able to locate places on a map, you first need to understand what a grid reference is. That's why it's so important. And then you are expected to identify and analyze different types of maps. What type of maps do we have? What type of maps are we talking about? Here we are referring to maps such as political maps, physical maps, topographic maps, climatic map, economic maps or resource maps, road maps, and thematic maps. All these particular maps have specific functions that they serve. Therefore, you need to understand, to be able to identify them and express how they are used or why they are important. And then you are expected to illustrate the 3 common features of a map. What are the 3 common features on a map? This is map work starting from grade 4 at primary school. This is where you have a scale that tells you at what scale the map is drawn to. Then the map will have a title or the heading, and it will have a map key. Those are very common features of a map. You are also expected to identify and analyze contours. In other words, you need to explain what a contour is. In a layman's language, a contour is a line joining areas of the same level or height above sea level. That's a contour line. So you need to look in the book, in your study guide, and understand these contour lines, because as a social science teacher, you will be teaching contour lines. You are also expected to be able to interpret recorded weather. Every day on the NBC, you see the weather reports coming. As a social science teacher, you need to understand, because you need to explain to people around you what the weatherman is talking about. And then you are expected to demonstrate lesson preparation to interpret lines of latitude, longitude, and contours. In this aspect, you are expected to demonstrate your ability to develop lesson preparation to interpret latitude, lines of latitude, longitude, and contour lines. You are expected to prepare a lesson where these are your topics. We move over to chapter 4. Chapter 4 deals with the elements of world geography and their impact on people. Here, you are expected to identify physical features of the world and also make a note of their importance to humans, to animals, and to plants. The physical features of the world are things such as the following. Mountains. It's physical. You can touch it, you can feel it. That's physical. That's a physical feature of the world. The plateaus. You can see it. It's a physical aspect of the world. Plains, a physical aspect. Deserts, bodies of water such as seas and oceans, and rivers and lakes. Those are the physical aspect of the world, and you are expected to identify them on a given map. You are also expected to propose how we can utilize and protect these features. How do we protect these features? How do we keep them longer? You are expected to propose measures on how we can do that. And then you are also expected to explain how climatic conditions influences the living conditions. What does the climate have to do with my existence on Earth? Do I depend on the conditions of the climate? Do I depend on the weather? Do I depend on the rain? Those are the questions that you need to answer as a social science teacher or as a social science student. And then you have to explain how climate, to differentiate between types of natural disasters and their impact on the environment of the world. We have a couple of natural disasters that we know of, some common in Namibia, some not so common, but we are expected to know how these natural disasters impact the earth. Remember, it's natural disasters, not man-made. I have a couple of these natural disasters that are listed here, such as floods. How does floods impact us? Drought. How are we impacted by drought? Tornadoes. How do tornadoes impact us? Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. How do these natural disasters impact us as human beings? Or how do these things affect us as human beings? You should be able to explain distinctively how these things are impacting our life and our existence. And then you are expected, and then we move over to chapter 5, which deals with the roles of technology in modern life, especially in communication. You need to understand first and foremost what is technology. What is technology? That is what you need to explain first. As I'm communicating to you, I'm using technology. As you are going to communicate to me, to give you some clarity on what I'm saying, you are using technology. So you should be able to give examples of technological developments that are available to us. And then you are expected, very important, expected to explain the advantages and disadvantages of technology for human and for the environment. Now that we have technology, how important and how advantageous is that to humans and the environment? What are the bad aspects of the availability of technology? Here I wrote a couple of them, such as globalization. That's an advantage. Because of technology, we'll be able to call your uncle or whoever far from you. The time you are calling is the time your uncle is receiving your call. That is an advantage of technology. Also communication. It has become very easy for us to communicate because of technology. It is also cost effective. It costs less to communicate to people far from you because of technology. For instance, you can send an email to a person anywhere in the world. In 2 seconds you are done. So it's really an advantage. And also bridging the cultural gap. Now that we have technology, we are interacting with people from all backgrounds, and that is limiting the cultural barrier that has been there. So that is an advantage. Also, more time is given. I can, for instance, do a lot of things at once because of technology. So I no longer have to waste a lot of time to do things one by one, while I can use technology to do things as much as I can, as fast as I can. And also creates a lot of new jobs. There are forever new jobs coming on the market because of technology. So those are the advantages of technology, or the good aspects or parts of technology. Also, technology has things that are not good, what we refer to in social sciences as disadvantages. These are things such as unemployment. Technology can lead to unemployment. For instance, the job that I'm doing at the moment could be done by a robot in the next 10 years. So my job will be gone. So technology has a disadvantage as well, and that is one of them. It also has a disadvantage as far as privacy is concerned. We have seen a couple of times how people's privacy are invaded because of technology, and also creates lacks of job security. Now that a robot is going to do what I'm doing at the moment, is my job secure? So that's a question that I need to ask myself. That is one disadvantage of technology. And then also health. We have seen most of our youngsters constantly with phones on their ears, constantly in front of their monitors, in front of their televisions. Causes damage to the ears, causes damage to the eyes. Those are the disadvantages of technology. And then we also have to look at, you also have to explain new sources of energy due to technology. Because of technology, what new sources of energy are created? I have listed a couple of them here, and they are as follows. Wind energy, energy that we get from the wind, turbines turning, creating energy, we get electricity. That is one. We have solar energy. So you have seen a couple of houses with solar panels on their roofs. That is what technology was able to bring to us as a new source of energy. And then you also have hydro energy. Hydro energy is energy that is deduced from water, converted into electricity, and we use it as energy. We also have tidal energy, which is basically energy from waves. With technology, we are able to create technology from tides. And then you have nuclear energy. These are all sources that came into existence because of technology. And as a social science teacher, you need to understand and go deeper in the understanding of these things. Because when you are expected to teach, you are expected to know what you are teaching. We also have to look at key aspects. Let me just get it right here. To identify, we also need to evaluate advantages and disadvantages of sources of energy. Now that you have heard what I have enumerated here or listed here as sources of energy, you need to see if there are advantages and disadvantages into this type of sources of energies. And I can tell you frankly here, almost everything has a disadvantage and an advantage. It's up to us as human beings to weigh what to use and what is safe for us. Then we have to identify key sources of information. Where do we get our information from? What I'm presenting to you at the moment, where did I get it from? Now, in your study guide, there's a lot of sources that are listed there as your source of information. So you need to dig deeper into that study guide and highlight all of them, understand all of them, and be able to present them when so requested. And then you are also expected to describe the internet and highlight some of its key dangers. I'm currently constantly using the internet because I need to source information from there, but there are hidden dangers in that. Now, as a student, you will be expected to highlight some of these key dangers. What are the dangers in using the internet or in having the internet available to you? And lastly, in this chapter, you are expected to explain how technology can be used in a class to promote teaching. How can one use technology? How do you as a teacher use technology to promote teaching? I can guarantee you here, the children of nowadays, those that are in school, they are into technology. In fact, we can refer to them as techno kids. They are into technology to an extent that when you introduce this thing to them in a class, you will entice their excitement. And so if you have prepared yourself well, you will be able to explain this how technology will advance their lives. Then we move to chapter 6. Chapter 6 deals with issues of economic and population development. And here you are expected to compare the main features of the Industrial Revolution era to the modern economy. When people are talking about the Industrial Revolution, what do they actually talk about? I have briefly defined or highlighted here. Industrial Revolution, it refers to a period characterized by fundamental changes in agriculture, textile and metal manufacture, transport, economic policy, the social structure in England, which spiraled to the rest of the world. In other words, the Industrial Revolution was a specific period of time in our history where there was a sudden improvement in agriculture, in textile, in metal manufacture, in transportation, in economic policies and social structures in England. But later it spiraled or it went all over the world, and that is what is referred to as the Industrial Revolution. Now, having this background of what it is, you now have to compare it with modern economy. And then you are expected to identify factors which help countries to develop. How is it that some countries are developed and some countries are not developed? Some countries are developing fast, some countries are developing slow. What is possibly causing that? Now here I identified a couple of them which help countries develop. Number one, stability and predictability. If you have stability in your country, you can easily predict what will be happening tomorrow. If you have no stability in your country, you do not know what tomorrow holds for you. Now, when it comes to investors or investing, they want that predictability. They want to know what will be happening to what they are investing tomorrow. That's basically what it means. There also has to be a lot of fair competition and renewal. Human beings are known to perform when they are competing because you have to try to be the best. And in that way, you will easily assist or enhance the development in your country. And then you need to have social cohesiveness, meaning the people in the country need to be together to forge ahead as one. Once you have this type of elements, you are guaranteed that your country will develop. You also have to have a clear path to self-betterment. As a human being, you want to consistently keep on improving yourself. And of course, that is what is referred to here as self-betterment. Now, when you are able to better yourself as a human being in your country, indirectly, you are aiding your country to develop. You are also expected to evaluate the contribution of natural and human resources towards the development of a country. Now, what is your contribution as a human being towards the development of your country? What is the contribution of your environment towards the development of your country? That is what is highlighted here, and that is what is very important. You are also expected to outline the importance of proper laws and fair implementation for development. Earlier on the slide, I referred to fairness in the application of laws. Here you are told that proper laws need to be in existence, and those who are implementing laws need to fairly implement these laws for the country to develop. Everyone needs to see that law that is applied, it's applied in the interest of the country and will lead to the betterment of the country. And then you are expected also to examine the duties and rights of both the employers and the employees under the Namibian Labour Act. How many cases of labor unrest have we heard of? Whether it's in Namibia or a neighboring country or in Europe, there are thousands of them. What is causing that? Could it be that the laws are not understood, or what could it be? Now, as a social science teacher, you are expected to examine the duties and rights of both the employer and the employees under the Namibian Labour Act. And then you are expected to describe factors which influences population growth. How is it that population is growing? How is our population growing? For instance, in Namibia, what is causing that? Now, I highlighted a few of them here. Number one is food. When people eat, people are healthy. So obviously, you expect your population to expand. And then you have health. If people are healthy, your population is guaranteed to grow. Now, sometimes when you have good education, good health, you combine those two, you are guaranteed of your population growing. There are, however, other things that will prevent the population from growing. I highlighted a couple of them here. For instance, wars. If we have war in the country, you don't expect people to grow because people will be dying. Also, if the government policies with regard to population is concerned is not positive for enhancing its growth, the population will stagnate and there will be no growth. The fertility rate can also lead to prevent the population from growing or enhance the growth of the population. Also, life expectancy. how long are we expected to be alive? That also will lead to, is a factor that affects the population growth. And also you can look at things such as religion. What does religion have to do with population growth? What is your religion telling you about population growth? So it could be a factor that played a role there. Your cultural tradition and cultural values as far as population is concerned. You realize that years back, it was very common for a person to have many children. Why? Because they were needed to do the labor at home. But you see, the same scenario at the moment, I leave that to you to answer as a social science teacher. But those are the things that you need to look at. And then you are expected to explain the main sources of population data and its importance to the country. Where do we get the data about population in Namibia? I listed a couple of entities here where we get our data as far as the population is concerned. Number one, Ministry of Home Affairs. When you register as a citizen, you are recorded. When you go apply for your ID, you are recorded. So your information is there, we can get it from there. Ministry of Health and Social Services, when you are born or when you were born, obviously you were born and registered and got the birth certificate possibly at the hospital. So we can get your records there. Police, when we are recorded in police books, either for things that are bad that we did or whatever, we are recorded and that become part of the data. Magistrate, yes, at magistrate there are a lot of paperwork that contains our data. Natives, when we apply for our driver's licenses, your data is recorded there. Churches, yes, we are members of various churches, and so we are recorded as members of various churches. And where you are going to teach, schools, of course, there are data, there are documents called registers in schools. So whoever passed by that school, whoever was a learner at that school, is recorded in a register. So there is data about population at school as well. We move to chapter 7. Chapter 7 is a very current chapter. It deals with issues regarding the international fight against HIV and AIDS. How are we fighting against HIV and AIDS? Now here you are expected to analyze facts and figures on HIV and AIDS in Namibia and in Africa. And then you are also expected to list Namibian values which put people at risk. I have a couple of them here. Values that put us at risk. Polygamy, when you have too many wives. Obviously you are enhancing your number of being infected because it's too many people on one person. And then you have your inheritance right. It has been a culture in some of our existence that a brother can inherit a wife of a dead brother. Circumcision, if you are circumcised and the tools are not cleaned, it is a possibility. Scarring and tattooing, when you are tattooing your body, you are at risk also of being infected with HIV and AIDS. And then you have brotherhood rights. You know, when people are, especially the youngsters, when they belong to one brotherhood, they even go to the extent of mixing blood, and that is very risky. So these are some of the cultural values that could put us at risk. And then here you are expected also to analyze the needs of people living with HIV. What are the needs of these people? Discuss guidelines for assessment, and then you are expected to discuss guidelines for assessment in the upper primary phase. What are these guidelines? These guidelines in senior primary phase are formative assessment, summative assessment, and continuous assessment. Those three you are expected to understand them and to be able to apply them. And then you are also expected to illustrate how to bring reality into a classroom using digital equipment. That I would refer you to page 406 to page 407 in your study guides. There is a lot of information about this aspect there, and I would really want that you go there and read about that. That brings us to the end of our presentation. Good luck and all the best for the exam. Thank you.